Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario Nuri and Kirill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at labsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all gonna have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. Welcome guys to another episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we got Craig from Spider Video up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the connection we made before and the good work that you did for us remotely. It was fantastic.
Thank you. And you know, the funny thing is that usually we kind of did it the opposite way. We usually find guests and then work with them. But this time it was kind of the reverse, where we got in touch with each other and then now working together. So before we kind of dive into it though, tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, I have a small boutique production company here in technically Dartmouth, but Halifax, Nova Scotia. I've been in video production for about almost 22 years now, starting from just small corporate work and just grew it organically until it became full-time work, and changed the brand name a little bit through the years, but settled on Spider Video probably 10 to 12 years ago and kind of stuck with that. And we kind of do a little bit of everything. So anything you want to press a record button on and shoot video for, we're really up for that. But specialty is in corporate storytelling. We do I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews with people. And that's really where our wheelhouse is for doing good work. Usually small teams that kind of work with. It's myself, and I have a number two, not on full time, but I employ him fairly busily all through the year. And then I have a group of trusted individuals I bring with me for our shoots. So probably similar to yourselves, we have 2 to 3 person, sometimes a little bit more crews, and then we kind of do a little bit of everything. So I kind of run the show in terms of director, producer, but also as cinematographer. Sometimes I'll lift all the gear and move the sandbags as well. So yeah, we've kind of do a little bit of everything though within that realm. A number of years ago, actually probably even before YouTube was YouTube Live, I was started doing live streaming as well. It was kind of like a side interest that I had. And this was years before that was a real viable platform. So we were using things that just didn't exist before, like knowing what Twitch was before Twitch was really what it is now. That was kind of new and just coming on board then. And that's continued on through the years. So we have a bunch of live streaming equipment. We've done, multicam live stream stuff, and it's fun. It's also pretty terrifying from the live side because so much can go wrong. I always tell clients, like, we've done all our good planning, everything's in place, but I gotta tell people, like, something, it could just not work on the end of the day because it's the internet. Things could happen.
You've been doing this for 20 years, and there's still the risk of live
There's
streaming
still
not
risks.
working.
Absolutely, every time. Yeah.
We've had so many requests. Well, not so many, but we've had a lot of requests over the years. Like, I feel like, especially in the earlier days, we kind of got a little bit more of it. And I think it was back in 2017 or 2016 time, like more events were starting to ask, like, oh, can you also live stream this to something? But even back then, there weren't many affordable live streaming solutions. And then finally there was this one Google box or something, Dario. I don't remember what it was that we got, but it was something that we were able to kind of plug into and live stream directly to YouTube.
But even then, sometimes it wouldn't connect.
Yeah, and I remember one specific project. It was like for this like local TEDx event, but it was like a very small scale. It wasn't a really big one. And we managed to get everything set up, but there were so many hiccups that were happening with it at the event that it started working literally just 5 minutes before the event started.
No, the best part about that was that we went through all this hoopla of like trying to make it work. Finally ends up working, and at the end of the day, there were only 2 people watching it, and one of them,
Yeah, 2 people
one of them
were watching it.
was one of the people that hired us to make sure everything was running smoothly. So one person watched it. We're like, what the hell?
You may hear an occasional dog bark here. We've got
We
couple
hear
dogs.
it. It's all good.
I'm running this from home. I do have an office. I have a separate office downtown Dartmouth, but that I store like all the gear and things like that.
So Dartmouth is right across. It's like, for those that don't know, like Halifax is like here, and like there's water, like separating you two. So it's like a bridge away, like, but it's not
like
part
New York
of
and
Halifax.
Brooklyn.
Yeah,
It's like New York and Brooklyn. Yeah.
It's very much like New York and Brooklyn for sure. It's a great.
It's still
analogy.
Halifax though, no?
Yeah.
Or like you guys are completely
it-
separate.
Yeah, it's Halifax. It's like the GTA. You know, you've got your all your smaller kind of I wouldn't call them boroughs necessarily, but smaller kind of mini cities inside the main one. And yeah, so growing up in Dartmouth, there's always animosity between Halifax and Dartmouth. It's just it's a sibling rivalry kind of fun way. You know, we always say Dartmouth is better because we have the nice view of Halifax, and Halifax people are usually terrified to come to Dartmouth. It's maybe similar to maybe Mississauga and Hamilton or something like that.
Yeah.
Mississauga's not Toronto, even though they all say. I mean, technically to the rest
Greater
of the world,
Toronto
it is Toronto.
Yeah, and but it's a fairly big. The population's growing, of course, over the number of years, and the film video scene here has been developing over the long years. But they've shot and continue to shoot a lot of big movie productions here. So there's a large film crew group here, like grips, gaffers, electrics. There's one primary rental house, and there is crew around. So, but we are, I feel like a dirty cousin to that in some ways. You know, we run the same things that they do. You know, we talk about good lighting and use scrims and flags and all the stuff we need to, and dollies and gimbals and everything, and use the same set language, but there's like 3 of us instead of 30 or more and stuff like that. So, but yeah, they've shot tons of stuff, and like right now there's a good tax credit, so a lot of Hulu and Amazon, Netflix stuff is being done here, and large Hollywood productions have happened in the past as well. Like Titanic was here at one point, and a bunch of things. Yeah. If you ever hear about the James Cameron Titanic, there's a story about how the chatter got laced with PCP, and all the crew got food poisoning or stoned and threw up all over the place. And so, yeah, it's a quick Google search.
You just hit us with like
hold on.
10 different
Yeah,
things
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Hold on.
How did they get laced?
There was it wasn't even an after party. It was like a crew wrap meal or something like that. And apparently like 90% of the crew got sick like throwing up.
It was DiCaprio. I'll bet you it was DiCaprio playing a prank.
Young DiCaprio, young and
This
naive.
is what you get for killing me at the end of this one.
Exactly. I should have made it on the boat. Or
There was room on the raft.
It was cold. It was
Exactly.
cold on the water. That's what you guys get for that.
Yeah. But there was seafood chowder apparently there. So there's two theories. One was just that it was food poisoning. But the other theory is that someone put like PCP or something, like some sort of hallucinogen in it, and people got all fucked up. And there was like ambulances. People had to go to the hospital. There's a whole myth around it and stuff like that. So
Local legend.
yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
always with seafood chowder. Anytime I hear someone getting really badly sick and they mention seafood chowder, I'm like, Jesus, that must be like a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah, yeah. But when I went to NASCAD University and I did what's called media arts at the time. They didn't have a film program, of course, till I finished. And but in media arts, you did a little bit of everything. So it's like video art. So we did lots of crazy, weird video art kind of stuff. But you learn all the same kinds of things. We were learning how to edit. This is at the beginning of digital editing. So Adobe was a really ugly, dirty program at the time. Premiere, Final Cut was in its super, super early stages, and but all the same types of ideas. Like DaVinci didn't even exist at the time, and we were editing on something that's called a Media 100, and we would use like something called like a zip drive or a jazz drive, which was like this thing about this size of a floppy, but it wasn't really it wasn't like a floppy, but it was like a hard disk, like a hard shell floppy, and it only had like, I don't know, 100 megabytes on it, and it cost, a couple $100. It was crazy, and you had to put all your stuff on that, so it was very interesting times. And when I finished there, though, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a film director. I'm going to go do that kind of stuff. And I worked on a couple big film sets. There was a movie called K-19 that was being shot here. I just did a week as a PA, like a bottom of the boot kind of PA. And it was very interesting afterwards because it was like the mesh of Star Wars, because you had Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson as the two stars on it. So it was interesting. So I got to actually walk them down to set from their they were, I mean, we're talking at least 22 years ago. So they were even like probably, it's not like they were more famous then, but they were like peak fame there. They were super cool. I mean, it's everyone of course wanted to be talking to them, and kind of, there was no like cell phones that you did. There were cell phones in hand, but not cell phones where you had cameras to them at the time. So, but
Couldn't take a
people always
selfie
wanted
back then, eh?
The big brick, you can't really.
Yeah, it would have been like, or it just would have been like those little, those the point and shoots at the time, or disposable cameras and stuff. So it was interesting because they trusted me to kind of walk them down, but also like just kind of not protect, like stand by the car and okay, now we're ready for Harrison to come. So the interesting story for that is me being, even though I'm older, so I was still, I was like 30 at the time or something like that, and but absolute new to being on a real set. I'd worked like one job as a PA before on a music video, and like one day. So somehow I got in on to be in the AD department to do the stuff with Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson, or just like the whole crew department. I think also one of the maybe Peter Sarsgaard was there as well. So, but at the time, so they're like, okay, you are going to walk Harrison Ford from his trailer down to set, or to the truck down to the set where they drove him up to. I'm like, okay, cool. So I've got my walkie on. I'm like, Mr. Ford, or said, we're ready for you. They're ready for you on set. I'm going to walk you down. So I give him like the 10 feet of walking. I'm just going to walk him. We're just walking down. And I said, so over the walkie, I was like, all right, I've got Harrison. I'm walking him down to set now. I see out of the corner of my eye, his head like snaps, like not snaps, but like totally looks at me, and I'm like, oh fuck! It's like, what did I do? And I'm like, okay, so anyways, just walk him all the way down, He's all good and does his thing. I go back to the AD department, and I'm like, hey, this kind of weird thing happened. And they're like, where I told them the scenario was, they're like, yeah, I guess we kind of forgot to tell you, we don't use their names over the walkies. We say like number 1 or number 2. So Harrison at the time was number 1, and Liam Neeson was number 2 or something like that. And I'm like, shit. So this is like, did I just like piss off here? Like
That's the code.
Yeah, Harrison Ford, you know, is Han Solo gonna hate me forever because he said that? So it was interesting. But he was super chill, super nice, off camera, doing his thing. And Liam Neeson was even nicer. Like he was just like your buddy, kind of walking around.
I heard
how's
he's
it going?
really
Good.
tall. Like he's really tall.
Super
for him.
tall.
Yeah.
And I'm not
really?
tall. Yeah, I'm only like 5'7", and he was like 6'2" or something like that. He's big dude. So yeah, so that was my birth by fire onto the set, and then I didn't go back to the next round just because I was getting busy. And no, I should say this is an interesting point for video people and stuff like that. It's like I was still married at the time, and I was just like, I can't work like 12 to 14-hour days for 3 weeks or 3 months at a time. It's like, I'm not going to be married anymore. This is not going to be good for me. So I'd done a few corporate jobs, and I kind of switched gears. Instead of trying to become a film director or work my way up in crew, I just started doing more corporate work. And little by little, just kind of built it up to where I am now.
Yeah, a lot of them tend to just marry people that work like crew members, or you know, a lot of their marriages might end up in divorce because the hours are really wild. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, like on a consistent basis, it's crazy. Like if you do it here and there, it's not that bad. Like maybe one a week that might be a 12-hour or a 14-hour, or twice. But doing consistently for 3
like
straight
weeks,
weeks, sometimes
yeah.
you have to fly out somewhere else, so you don't even get to come home where they could see you briefly like that. So it's like, I don't know how that lifestyle works for people who have who are married to people in completely separate worlds. I'm really curious about how that works.
It doesn't work.
I think I think
Majority
you're
of
right. Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't work. What I heard from people that I know in the industry, they're like exactly what you said. They're either married to someone who's also in the industry, or they're not married at all. So it's not, and definitely like the benefit of doing this work, which is something I'll probably never actually truly be able to realize, is that I've never had to work in an office like a 9-to-5 lockdown kind of thing for all my career as doing video stuff. So I'm able to like kick off at 3 o'clock and make sure the kids get home from school, or I can go see the soccer game, you know, whenever it is, no problem at all. Or I can, if someone has an early hockey practice, I can take the time to do that, because that flexibility and control within working for yourself is, you know, amazing. And my family and my kids have definitely benefited from that, and myself, I should say, as well. Of course, the downside of that is that, you know, you kind of work all the time otherwise, and you sometimes, as you both know, you don't know if you're going to work next week. So it's always an edge of terror that you're always on sometimes.
I've always wondered what it would be like for the kids of video professionals like us who have that work-life balance and flexibility, where we get to kind of like work when we need to, you know, be able to make it for things that are important as well. That might be normalized for them, whereas like when we were younger, it was very normal for us that our parents would have to go to work from 9 to 5 constantly. That was the lifestyle, and then it was almost like us doing this was like a rebellion to that. Will their rebellion be going into the 9 to 5 workflow as well?
Well, I think once you get it, it's hard to let go. And you know, I've talked about this before. It's just like it might be difficult to work for anyone else at this point, just because of the flexibility that I'm used to and stuff like that. And you know, I always tell people when it's good, when this job is good, it's amazing. You have, you know, flexibility, you've got good income, you're creative all the time, you get to do all that kind of stuff. When it's okay, like there's a little more stress and anxiety and things like that and so on, but it's still pretty good. You know, it's just regular. You know, everyone else has jobs that are not great. But when it's not great, it's, you know, it's still not bad at all. But when it's bad, there is zero safety net. Like it is, you have to. The anxiety and stress goes way, way up. So it's just, as long as you can balance that roller coaster that kind of happens with that, then I think, you know, it's a great opportunity to do. It's definitely not for everyone. by a long shot. But if you can make it work, has great benefits for sure.
There was one thing you mentioned earlier, how like when you were still in school, you had like a 100 megabyte hard drive or disk that was basically your whole life on and wasn't exactly a very cheap thing. It got me thinking because this morning I saw this video from Cold Fusion about how they just developed this new CD disk that can hold something like 1.6 petabytes of data, which is around 200,000 gigabytes. And that is one thing in our industry that people forget about in terms of the business side of things is like, what happens once you film everything? What is the economics of storing all the data and everything? Because I just recently we just filled up a lot of our main drives, and then I had to go through this process of like researching and finding the most cost effective like storage alternatives. But like I don't know, like everyone's system is different. Like how do you typically go about like storing and maintaining like the files from like clients and everything?
For sure. Like interesting, when I first started, we were shooting on mini DV cameras. So like there's a camera that I still love. It's a Canon XL1, I think it is. It's got that big fluorescent lens on the front. It's like a zoom kind of thing. But it was all mini DV tapes. And mini DV tapes you could review and watch, but for the most part, it was pretty difficult to do it. It's like it's digital tape. So I have 2 or 3 boxes like that are 2 feet by 3 feet, just stuffed full of mini DV tapes, and that was the backup. There was no that's the source backup that you just kind of put on a shelf. And at the time, there was ways that you're supposed to rotate them every year or something like that, because there's really weird kind of like gravity weight in pixels is kind of strange stuff. Anyways, I never did it. So
It's like hard drives today, though. You gotta like boot them up every now and then, otherwise like the lubes dry in the discs and they won't turn anymore. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So what I would get into the habit of doing is basically, I always did double backup, because in the video industry, it doesn't live twice, it doesn't live at all. So you always have that, and maybe even a third backup for that stuff that's super, super important.
We do 3. We do 3 actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like the way we do it is since there's the 2 of us, like we would create like 3 backups where I would have like maybe 2 main ones and then one goes to Dario, because I typically have to access them more often than him, but he at least keeps a backup of everything once it's been set. It's just it's really just a peace of mind thing. But then there are times where we talk about like how long do we keep people's stuff stored for, like like we say like we're only guaranteeing for like 2 years or something like that with clients, but we typically just keep everything, because we've had clients even come to us recently for a project that we did like 4 years ago, say, hey, we need to change something from that video because so and so is no longer working with us.
That's a one-off. It doesn't happen often. Like I would say, like it's maybe 1% of the time they ask for something like that.
Yeah. I do the similar thing. I tell people, I don't even tell them, I always back up everything, and I have a file cabinet that has, I used to just name them like ABC and someone like that. Now I've gone through the alphabet through these drives, and now we're into like numerical system. So I've got that as a back. So there's always that lives a backup somewhere. But I always tell people, like, basically after the project's done, I won't guarantee that we can unarchive the footage. I say we do archive it and just goes and sits on a shelf, but that drive may not, like you said, it may not work. So I don't just tell them.
How does your numerical system work? Like 1, 2, 3, but then how does that correlate to what might be in that project? Because we do like, actually when we fill it up, we just type in like the types of projects that are in there and like the year, right? So we might have client A, year.
We have a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet that basically just says like this is the name of the drive, lapse drive number 1, lapse drive number 2, and then there's like a backup for each of those. So there's like each number is like a set of like 3 backups, right? Or 2 or 3 backups depending when we started doing it. And then in that spreadsheet, we write down what the projects are, which clients from what date to what date. So that way we have a faster way of like referencing and looking over like which drive we need to kind of access. And then we just label it directly on the drive as well with like a little sticky. It's like lapse drive number this.
You know what you
and
should
then-
do, Carol? You should take a screenshot of all the folders and then just collapse the subfolders as well. Take a picture and maybe link it to that document as well. It's easier to see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could, but I just type it in because then,
But then you can easily search it. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's a little bit easier to search it like with that system. It's like, and I just reference it directly on the spreadsheet, which...
Yeah, I wish I would have done a spreadsheet before, because I do actually what you said, Dario. I basically just take a or a folder system screen image shot of what's in there, and because it's usually like client X, Y, Z, and so on. And if there is maybe subfolders, but then I've got clients going back like 10 plus years, stuff like that. So
Really?
hopefully,
Oh my God, what?
I
Yeah,
don't get that
so-
though, because how like that footage, like camera technology has come so far. Even like your own skills and like skills of your freelancers have come so far. That like does that footage
Just make a new one.
Yeah, like
Just
what?
do a new
Yeah,
video.
is that footage still good to use nowadays? Like that's what I.
No,
That's why I feel
no,
like
definitely not.
after like 2 years, it's like it's done, man. Like this footage is no longer usable anymore.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting segue actually, because the camera technology where we're at now is, I wouldn't say it's like plateaued per se, but once the advancement into like that everyone was on HD, like 1920 by 1080, because most people deliver in that. Some, rarely even now clients will want to deliver to 4K, because everything that ends up on YouTube or something like that they're either watching on their phones or their laptops, and that's still in HD. So I think once we get to HD, and then once we get to the 4K, that probably kind of plateaued in terms of camera technology. So if we have stuff that is shot in HD from 10 years ago, if it was like a rare thing of like, oh, we want to do a retrospective of our CEO at the time, do you have anything there? It's like, well, let me see if I can blow the dust off, and it still should look pretty good. I use Vimeo for all my client reviews of and transferring files and stuff like that for them to watch. Or, the master file will go there, and they can just download from there. And I probably had 15 years of Vimeo files, because once it goes up there, it can stay up there until Vimeo doesn't exist anymore. And but for some weird reason, about 2 years ago, I went through Vimeo. I'm like, you know what? There's like thousands of videos here. I'm just going to go delete everything from like 6 years ago to the start of time, except for maybe a couple of special ones that I really wanted. And I went and did that, and like less than a year later, clients like, hey, remember that video we did like really long time ago? Blah, blah,
It's
blah.
always like that.
And I was just like, yeah, I do, but it doesn't exist anymore. And I said, I can rebuild the entire thing if you want. So if someone does want something totally rebuilt, and that's the thing, when you go back farther back in time, project files may not even mesh up and things like that. So it's like maybe the footage there, but essentially it's a whole new editing project unto itself, plus the archiving as well. And just because you spend time doing that.
I hope you're charging a fee for whenever you have to go back to the archive, because that's what we do on our end.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the only way to do it, because it's your time. Everything you do is time, and that over the years, especially over the last 5 years, I've kind of started to make sure that we charge for even just like emails administration, that there's a budget line there somewhere that says, we're going to have 10 conversations over email. So it's producing time. So it's like an hour or two of time that
you
we
put a
add in
number.
there.
You put a number to the amount of emails.
Not to the amount of emails, just I kind of will.
I thought you said like if it's over 10 emails, I'm gonna charge you for it.
That's right. It's like 18 cents per email now. Usually, yeah. It's usually just like I just know that certain clients are going to be a lot of conversations or not so many conversations. So you can just ballpark. It's like, oh, this is going to be, 10 hours of time or 5 hours of time over the course of the project that I'm to make sure that I get paid for, because anyone else is working, they're getting paid for that too. So
We do
you
like
should as
a
well.
project management fee, and we throw in client communications, cast and crew communications, and then general admin stuff.
All communications.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I know, but you gotta itemize it sometimes, girls, just so they know what it is. Because I've had them ask at the beginning, it's like, what is this? And then I'm like, okay, it's this, this, and that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
with this, what we're doing right now. That's what you tell them. It's,
That's exactly
What we're doing right now.
it's this.
And people don't kind of realize, people just don't realize. I think probably people who work for themselves kind of forget that that is time. And, you know, I probably could have made a lot more money if I had charged for, put those budget lines in way earlier just to make sure that, because we're nice people, we want to help them out, so we respond to emails a lot and you get back and forth. But, you know, on a recent project, I was, because I'm very much on demand, I have some clients who text me at any time of the day, and I'm open to that because they're great clients for me and I like working with them and not too difficult to do the stuff we need to do for them. But there was a different project we did, and we were like, you know, we were 10 p.m. doing work for people. They were texting us directly, and it's like, yeah, this is just extra time, so let's make sure we get paid for it.
Yeah, that's good. What was the scene like when you started in Dartmouth or Halifax? Like, what was like the corporate video scene like?
It was a little weird, I think, honestly, because there was a lot of blend of the large-scale productions, like television, because TV was big then, like broadcast television was still like news and all that kind of stuff was big. But then also when these shows would come in, they'd be doing EPK, so electronic press kits kind of stuff. So there was a bunch of people who did that. And then there was just a bunch of corporate stuff that was kind of, some of it was just like boring, like event stuff, like, oh, dance recitals. So interestingly enough, like it goes far back enough where it was like you would make a VHS. So I did some work for some people starting out where they were doing like dance recitals. They're like, okay, we're going to do this dance recital thing, you know, kind of basic, kind of boring stuff, but this stuff pays the bills as well. And then they would finish by mastering it to VHS and getting all those VHS tapes duplicated, and people would buy them for $10. And then that eventually switched into CDs for doing the same kind of things. And then that switched into maybe it was and then into DVDs. Maybe it was DVDs first, and then into CDs, and then now it's just purely digitally online and stuff like that. So there was a whole different world of doing that kind of stuff, and there wasn't many production companies around. There was a few more because there was a couple of small, like actual real studios, but Halifax at the time was a small kind of place, and I didn't really have a whole lot of people to lean on. There's kind of one person that I kind of met early days. His name was Chuck Calder from 45 North, and a bit of an icon in terms of the video production stuff, and he was a great resource. So at the time, I'd rent like a what was they called? Not a high 8, but like a mini DV, but an HD mini DV camera. I think that was like a Sony HDV or something like that. And I wouldn't know what I was doing at all, really, for the most part. Because although I went to school and would get trained in terms of media production, it was not like film training. It was not like, you know, I learned most things just by doing it and watching other people do it. But like Chuck was fantastic. He was just like, yeah, you want to go rent that? Sure. And I've heard from other people who said like he would even like drive it and drop it off to people's places and stuff like that and pick it up from them, you know, the next day and stuff like that. So, but he had a small production company called 45 North, and they did a little bit of everything. They did the EPKs, and then they eventually moved into doing a lot of live stuff as well. And yeah, he was just a great person. Like he would, you know, walk in the office, just shoot the shit for hours about just like, because you don't run into people like yourselves very often where you can actually just talk industry stuff because people are usually very insular and in terms of meeting other people because, oh, you're going to take my clients or you're going to take my clients. I did the opposite. I went out and actually met people and said, hey, can we just basically did this, but grab coffees with people and like, hey, can we just talk and find out about, you know, what you do or, you know, what should I know or what should I be aware of and, you know, how can it be better and stuff like that. So I did a bunch of that with meeting with people. And I also did that same thing with agencies as well. So get out, meet people like CEOs or ad agency execs and stuff like that. Just like, hey, can I pop in and have a coffee for, it's the cheapest mentoring that could ever find for sure. And people were totally open to it. Here in the Maritimes, it seemed like everyone's, yeah, we'll do that and stuff like that. So, but really at the beginning, there was a lot of crappy equipment, a lot of like hot orange redheads and stuff like that you could burn yourself and your house down with. I did a lot of things with some weird equipment. Like no one sees, because I really took to the fact that no one sees what's behind the camera, right? As long as things look pretty good, it's fine. Like
as long as you blind them with the light, no one can see what's behind.
Exactly.
Tape the mic to a stick, and that's your
mic
boom.
to a stick, yeah, for sure. Like, did I ever use a work light to light a scene? Yes, for sure. I did that way back. But eventually,
it's like the Shitty Rigs Instagram
yes,
page.
yes.
Oh, there's DIY ways to do it. I remember like one of my favorite funny memories of this was once Dario and I had a shoot back in like 2014, 2015.
The light bulb one.
I had to drop him off at one location to do a shoot. So he took one of the backpacks, right, that we had, and then I had to go to another location. When I got there, I realized that he took the backpack with all the base plates.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? What do I do here? And then what I did was I took my camera and then with just duct taped it to the tripod. And that's how I conducted that whole entire shoot. But I got creative. I started doing things where I let things move rather than moving the camera. I'm like, okay, I got some cool stuff out of it. All right. But then when I met up with him later, I'm like, damn it, man, you took the bag with all the base plates. And I was like, oh, damn, I didn't realize.
I thought you were going to mention the light bulb one. Remember we were doing it for that student group? I think the first time.
Oh, yeah.
I
this
worked
was like
with you on the student group video.
Yeah, this was like the very first, because I started doing video like about a year before Dario jumped into it. And then when I started working on my own projects, he came in one day to assist. And I had just gotten these new new lights with soft boxes from Amazon. Yeah. I mean, back then, when you're starting out in 2013.
Cowboy Studio, do you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. It was Cowboy Studio.
Cowboy
Those guys
Studio, everyone knows.
Yeah, I was on their site just the other day, actually.
They're still around? Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I still have a reflector from them from back in the day, like that doesn't break. But essentially, on this shoot, I had just gotten these lights from them, and it was that classic set of like 3 lights for like $200.
Yeah.
And they had these light bulbs with.
So ones that like spin or what, like they're circular.
Oh yeah, they're almost like a complex fluorescent light.
Yeah, something like that. And then I turn everything on and it's running, we're filming a little bit, and then all of a sudden we start smelling a little bit of smoke. And then we noticed that like some of the light bulbs started burning out and it just filled the room with such an acrid smell.
If we get cancer in the future, it's gonna be from that shoot.
God knows that one.
God knows
It's
what was in those bulbs.
It's like it's a built-in fog machine, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It took a while for us to find lights that worked, and then in 2014 there was these like circular LEDs that we managed to find, and then we bought those. They weren't super powerful, but we knew at least that they were not going to run hot, they weren't going to burn out on us or anything like that. And this was like when LEDs were like still in their infancy for video production, and then when finally Aperture came out, that just started to make things so much easier. I was like, oh my God, these LEDs are so powerful. And
then they got too expensive, and then thank God for Nan light.
Yeah, I love that light.
Although I find though that like I've gone from halogen, like touch it, you'll burn absolutely, you'll scorch your hand off and stuff like that, to where we are now with even just like the light mats and stuff like that, and like the blow up soft boxes and things like it is amazing to be able to. I work with a friend of mine who's I've known since junior high, and he went off to not become a grip, but he worked in the film industry, and is a great grip and electric. And I always trust whatever he says. If he says, yeah, how about we do this, and if I'm like, I don't know if I wanted to do that, maybe not a good idea, I usually afterwards always regret it. So anytime he says something, I totally do it. But he has also come through this whole world and evolution of stuff. He's worked on the big film sets and the small stuff. And We just were talking the other day about how good lights are now, that they're consistent in color, they don't flicker, they don't burn anybody up, they're easy to operate, they're now waterproof basically. And the cameras themselves are relatively light, but they almost always look good. You have to work really hard to screw something up to make things look bad now with camera technology for the most part.
It's such a time for people jumping into the industry, and like even just to get started. I think we touched upon this in a previous episode where you can get a lot of really, really high quality equipment for basically not no money, but like very inexpensive. Like what used to cost like for $5,000. I've always wondered like if we could do like this kind of challenge. Like for $5,000, what kind of kit can you get yourself to get started in this industry? I'm sure there's like thousands of YouTube videos and everything.
If you
like
go
that
the
out
used
there.
route, you're set basically.
That's what I mean. Like going the used route alone, because there's a lot of great cameras that people are trying to offload because they don't need anymore. Like a C200 alone, you could probably get for less than $3,000, which was like
even less.
10
Even less than
grand.
that, yeah.
Even less than that. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's gotten so low to the point where like Dario and I, we were talking about like, oh, should we sell?
We were
the
trying to we were
C200s?
trying to sell them, and then I was like, I'm not selling it for $3K. Like we spent $9K
No.
on these things just for the sentimental value. I'm holding on to it. Like
Yeah, these things are great.
they're still
Like
good
and
to use
here's-
too.
Yeah, exactly to your point there too, Craig. It's like like footage, like the cameras from like 6-7 years ago still shoot HD, still shoot 4K. That stuff's still usable. Like if
The cinema cameras, we should clarify. The DSLRs, they have come quite a long way.
they've come a long way, but at the end of the day, like even like some of the DSLRs from like 6-7 years ago, like you could still work with them. At least even if you're jumping into the industry, you could. There's so much you could do. I mean, like I remember when I jumped into it, like every camera that was released had such a huge incremental jump. So it was kind of like it was almost like wild. Whereas like now they're incremental, like smaller jumps in quality. So
But you should remember, the stuff from back then is passable, but it's not like, good. It's passable. If you're
It's
like
good to
stuck
learn
in
with.
a. No. I meant like in terms of like longevity of the content that you shot from back then. Because, like, if I think about, I remember when we were on, we were still using Sony's, and we were looking at the 4K difference between our A7S II and like our C200. Like there was a noticeable difference between the 4K quality. Do you remember?
I remember specifically there was a difference between this A7S II and the Canon C100 back then, which was a little bit
for
wild.
Yeah, because the C100 was older.
Well, the difference was that the C100 was better than the A7S II, which shocked me because the C100 had a camera sensor that was 4K downscaled to 1080p, but it was only an HD camera. Whereas like the Sony 4K, I did a comparison when I shot them, and like the C100 HD was so much better than the Sony 4K, which was almost shocking to me at the time. I'm like, this doesn't seem right, but it just goes to show like what the difference was back then. There were such huge differences between every single camera, so it was really like that's why people got really into being gearheads, because people would be like, I'm so into this one because of these benefits, whereas I'm so into these ones because of those benefits. Whereas now the differences are small. It's like it's up to personal preference at this point between cameras and everything like that. Like the difference between a Sony cinema camera versus a Canon cinema camera, it's like it's small things, ergonomics, buttons,
Autofocus
minor
is way better.
Autofocus. I mean, yeah, but my point is like it's not like something where it's like a huge difference in quality.
I'm telling you, the next push is they're going to start introducing AI features in these cameras.
You think?
We might see some big improvements once they start doing that.
They just love to push that sensor size. Really, it's the Blackmagic's got the 12K kind of stuff, and I'm working on a project this Friday that they're doing. Part of these projects being shot, I think, in Vancouver today, and they're shooting 6K downscaling to TikTok from that. So
Such a waste.
But, yeah, I'm like, it's like I don't think you really need that. Like, it's fine. But even I have like an event. There's an event happening here this week that I'm not going to shoot, but I've got some people to shoot for me. Honestly, for a client, and they're still using Sony FS7 because the FS7 has been a beast of a workhorse. It shoots 4K. it is pretty good for color. And I thought about buying that camera several times. And when the C200 came out, I was like, because I was using 5D Mark III at the time, which was loved this full frame sensor of that 5D. And when the C200 was about to come out, a cinematographer friend of mine said, like, this is the camera for you. And I was, because it can shoot RAW, which I maybe have shot like 5 times with over
I
the.
think we did it once, and that was it.
Couple times. It was never needed constantly.
No, and the 8-bit the footage looked great out of that camera right off the bat. So it was awesome. And I shot. I know I've got over 1,000 or more hours on that camera for sure, and but I just loved how easy it was to kind of color grade out of that. And I was on the Facebook groups for it, stuff like that. People were going crazy, like, when's it going to be 10-bit? When's it going to be 10-bit? It's just like, I don't need 10-bit. Hello, cat.
I was gonna say I was wondering what that little thing was that was coming out in the frame. I'm like, hold on, let me.
Well, it definitely wasn't the dog from earlier, Kirill.
No.
Dog tails don't go like this.
Yeah, but when I was looking at the I wasn't necessarily looking to upgrade from the C200, but I was thinking that maybe I needed something a little bit better. And I'm really stingy when it comes to getting a new camera, because once you invest in a camera, you just don't want to ever spend money ever again. But so I was looking at the FX6, the Sony FX6, and the C70, which we're using here right now, and I wanted to buy the FX6, and this was probably 2+ years ago now, when it was just coming out, and that was the reason. Like I did, because the great thing was, at the time, Sony had 0% financing, so I was like, oh great, I'm going to do that. That's what I did with my old camera. I'm going to do this with this one. It's a great way to kind of finance a camera and get good tech in your hands. And so I went through the whole process. Sony was, yeah, we're good to go. And then they're like, oh yeah, so say it was like September or something like that. They're like, yeah, you can get it in might be able to get it in March. I was like, what are you talking about? This is I want it next week. What are you talking about? So I was just like, they're like, no, it's just, this is when the whole sensor shortage was in play and stuff like that. And I was just like, exactly. So I contacted local Canon rep that I've been dealing with when I got the C200, and I was like, hey, what about that C70? And I used to have a little number on my whiteboard in my office where it showed the difference in size in terms of millimeters for the Sony and the FX6 and the C70, and it was 10 millimeters bigger for the FX6, because it was a full frame. And I was just like, I don't know if I can. Really, that's what I want, but it didn't exist. So I called the Canon rep guy. He's like, do you still have 0% financing on the Canon? They're like, yeah, actually it just happened last week. I'm like, great, let's do it. I'll send the application in. I think I got the camera 4 days later or something like that. It gets shipped. Shipped, and I got a couple lenses with it, and I was able, and an EF adapter. So I was able to use my EF lenses from
that adapter is
C200
awesome.
as well. Yeah,
get an extra stop of light with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was. I do also have a Blackmagic pocket cinema camera as well. I don't shoot much with, but I needed it as a B camera one time, and I got it and just started using it and stuff like that. So
I love the C70. It's a fantastic camera. Impressive
every day.
Even and when you pair that with the R5C as a B cam, it's the combo is it's fantastic right now. Like obviously every camera has its drawbacks here and there, but overall they have been great. And at the time, and luckily we're actually just, I think, 2 months away from finally paying off the C70
really?
as well from the.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's $1,000 a month extra now that we have.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in the same boat.
Oh man.
But that's the thing. When you're trying to look for cameras and everything like that, you have to think about what you also have. How much do you need that other brand camera? If you switch into that ecosystem, then you have to it's like you're reinvesting everything again.
Yeah.
So if you get
sure.
2 new cameras with all the associated lenses and cards as well are not cheap. When we got the R5Cs, when we got the R5Cs, we realized, oh, this is not with SD cards. Like, it is like one SD
One
card
SD
and one
and-
CF Express Type
Yeah.
B. And Dara and I, we were looking at cards because usually it's good to have multiple. And then
yeah.
I thought, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, Daria. We're gonna get one massive CF Express Type B card and a backup little one, but that big one is gonna be like the main card in the R5C. It's
It's
just
like
gonna
$1,000
live there.
bucks. Look at that, $1,000.
It was 2 terabyte CF Express Type B, and it was $1,300 each. But it was like, what was the alternative? We get a bunch of like 256 cards that are $500, $600, $700. It's like that thing's
Yeah.
gonna add up over time. And then we really only do it because we double record,
Right.
and we always do backups. So we said, okay, CF Express lives in the camera, and then we just swap out the SD cards as the backups for that, and then that'll be our workflow. And thankfully, it's been very useful. But like it's crazy. It's crazy when you need to reinvest in something new. And like you said, like if once you get a camera, you're sticking with it for like 3, maybe 4 years if you can push it, depending, right? Or if there's like some big push for a type of feature that you're gonna need for a client project or for certain projects that you start coming into, right? Otherwise, you make do with it, you know? And that's why also a lot of people rent. A lot of people in our industry also rent cameras for depending on the needs of the project, especially directors of photography that do big budget commercials. Like they're not going to be, not all of them are going to drop 200K on an RA Alexa or whatever with all the associated stuff that you
The
need.
occasional one will.
The occasional one will, because they use that as like a selling point. It's like, hire me and then I come with my own
Yeah.
RA, you know, and that saves the production. Like, well, I don't know. They probably, they still rent it, but it's like at a discounted price probably than going
There's a
to
friend of
rental
ours
house.
that wanted to drop 80K on a Sony Venice, and we're like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, I rented from the beginning, but then I realized, especially in the corporate world, it's like you might get a call tomorrow or in 2 hours, and they're like, hey, can you shoot tomorrow? And then like you reach out to the rental host, they're like, oh no, the camera's all gone for the week. So I learned early on that you need to have some type of camera. It doesn't have to be the best camera. Yeah, you just need to have something. I actually still have the Sony EX1-R HD. It's a servo zoom, kind of like a advanced camcorder kind of thing. The first I bought that early on, probably I remember specifically at the time buying it, purchasing it, and telling my wife like, oh yeah, I bought a camera. She said, oh great, blah blah blah. And then I was like, she's like, oh, how much was that? I was like, yeah, it was about $10,000. She's like, what? How are you gonna pay for that? Oh my god. And this was early days.
It's
so it was
called
like, it was
tax
a huge-
write-off.
Yeah. But the funny thing was that camera I still use to this day. It now you only use it for because it has a servo zoom and it shoots 1080 at its maximum. But when we're doing like live streams, it's a perfect camera. It is an absolute perfect camera for it. And a friend of mine was dumping in one of his, and he's like, "Hey, do you want it for?" It was like a ridiculous amount of money. It was like a couple $100, something like that. He's like, when you want to buy this from me?" I'm like, "I absolutely do." So now I have 2 of them, and they're perfect for doing live stream. Yeah, it's
Basically 2 for
it's
1,
so
you guys,
weird.
those cameras.
Yeah, it's so weird. And I shot a lot of footage on that camera, and it was, it's not a cinema camera, but if you use it properly, it still looks good out of the box and stuff like that. And that's like, I don't get rid of technology because of that reason. I've got a lot of stuff. I've got 2 of those cameras. I've got the Blackmagic, my 5D, which I shoot more of kids' hockey games than I do in the stills than I do with anything else with it anymore. But it's still there. It can do stuff, and yeah, it's definitely a big thing to consider. Do you want to buy or do you want to rent? But when you're talking about renting or leasing, if you can do 0% financing and lease a camera that you're going to use,
They got rid of that.
several times.
It used to be nice. They had 0% financing.
Oh, they got rid of it?
Oh yeah, it's like, I think it's like 4% now. Well, last time
really?
I checked months back, I think they raised it 4%. You know when Apple got rid of the 0% financing for their phones, that's when you knew everyone else was gonna get rid of it. If Apple does it, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, Canon was pretty good. Like both Canon and Sony both had that. Like that's why, and then probably the same as you two. That's why you got this camera.
Yeah.
At the time,
Sony
for what it
has.
was.
I saw in like some camera shop they had the 0% financing for the FX6 at 24 months. So they probably
still have
pop
it?
it out.
Okay.
They still, yeah, this was recent, and they probably have it come up as promotions every now and then. But like even if it's not 0%, like the benefit of doing the financing is that if it costs you like say $300-400 a month to finance a camera, that's the same as a day rate for renting it out anyway. So
Exactly.
if you see yourself using a camera more than twice in a month, then you're already getting your money's worth rather than just paying a rental house, and then at the end of the day you get to keep it, right? So it just comes down to like what's the best business approach, right? And that's probably also what a lot of like bigger productions also do. It's and like DPs, it's like if they see themselves using a certain camera multiple times in a month for depending on their gigs, it sometimes makes more sense to just buy rather than rent, unless you're someone who wants to keep trying different things.
There's
constantly.
also the again, when it comes to buying outright and financing or leasing, there's the tax implications, right? So if you buy it, you have
Sure.
to do 5-year amortization versus financing it. You could write off the full amount, I guess, or whatever.
At a monthly basis, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a different kind of expense system that you're doing, right? And you can't amortize finance costs.
Our accountant told us financing would have been better for us, so that's what we went with.
Yeah, you just listen. That's why you pay them to do that kind of stuff. We do something else entirely, not have to worry about that at all, for sure. Not worry about it, but it's just like that.
Also, would have been hard to spend, like, how much was the C70? Like $6,000 times 2. That's 12 times another 2. That's 24. It's like 30 G's all in. We have to get the extra battery too, because you can't just have the one battery.
For sure.
And those batteries are like $600 each.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, I was just saying, it's a crazy industry when it comes to this stuff, and it's like everyone's situation is unique, you know, depending on your work, and you just have to find the best solution that works for you.
yeah, for sure. And really, cash flow is always super important, super challenging. And if you can manage that well, then you have a better, it's just going to create less anxiety for you. And years and years and years ago, because it used to be like super busy and then be quiet and busy again and then quiet, stuff like that. And at the time I was like, this needs to change. Like I can't be like super busy and then, you know, wreck my home life because I'm just working so much all the time, and then I'm around too much and stuff like that. Like what I wanted to do is like, I just want this to kind of be, I remember saying at the time, I was like, I'm going to try to even that sine curve from really big peaks and valleys to like just a nice even up and down. So it kind of goes like this. And it happened, but I don't think it was anything that I did necessarily, but I definitely, if you can kind of manage that, so you can manage the work so that it's not all happening at the same time and get some of that control, which is kind of what happened the last, like from March till about 2 weeks ago. Things were just like super busy all over the place. Great problem to have. And the challenge for me and the stress for me was just that I didn't have as much control over the schedule all the time. If I have control of the schedule, I can be like, okay, we're going to shoot Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, and we'll edit this. But a lot of things are happening like, no, everyone wants to do everything on Monday and Tuesday, and like 5 different clients want to do it. So it's like, well, it's like, how can I make it work? So that's always a big thing. And I always tell people, you know, if you can just always get back to people when you're trying to deal with in terms of communication, it's like, don't leave your communication too long at all. Like if you can respond back to people right away, that people really, really appreciate that. And it's our job to worry about trying to make things happen for them and responding back. And you know, most people on the client side, their job's not video. That's what we're here for. So if we can make that easier, faster, and more responsive to them, then that's always the best way to go, for sure.
How do you handle it when you have like 2 or 3 projects on the same day? Because I don't think you mentioned you have like other producers to help you. Maybe you do?
No, I mean, I don't. I have a good trusted network. And that's the thing, when I started out, it's me, really. And I have people I work with, but really it's kind of, I have to split my brain like 4 different ways to kind of make everything happen. But kind of works out. But if things happen, if things have to happen on the same day, I have a couple people that I trust to shoot. Like, there's a lot of people that shoot well, for sure. But when we're dealing with clients that I want to build a relationship with or have a good relationship with, and I don't want to burn it because it's not me there. There's very few people that I trust to kind of go shoot for me. Just because, honestly, because most people, even though they're going to hire Spider Video, they're hiring Craig and his team versus Spider Video rando who's going to come in and do the work for us. So I try not to actually have multiple shoots on the same day. It's pretty rare, unless it's something where it's like, oh, it's just a B-roll shoot, or something that really it's not working with clients. From the interview side, I will not. Aside from you two, where I can't fly to Ontario to kind of do it, I really rarely ever have anyone else do an interview. And even if I did have someone do an interview, I'll do what I did with yourselves, and I'll kind of remote into it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just, that is my specialty, is dealing with people face to face and having them be relaxed on camera and getting them to tell their story, whatever story it is, marketing or some sort of life story, whatever it is, having them be relaxed and authentic on camera, and that's what I'm kind of good at. So it's not that I don't trust anyone else to do that. I don't have another one of me, but I have a couple of people that work with me who I'm getting more confident for sending them out to do different things. And there's a lot of cases I'll have them go and shoot different things. But when it comes down to the interviewing side of things, it's usually me on site for sure.
It's very hard to find people that you can trust with that. Like, luckily for Dario and myself is that there's two of us. So at most, we usually we would have like maybe two projects on the same day. Or if like one person has to handle certain projects 1 week and then the other one can handle other ones, at the very least, we can both kind of pick that up. Similar situation as you. It's hard to find though other people where we would ever need it. Like, occasionally we send out shooters if it's like something very simple and straightforward that our client will be. Also, here's the thing: you also have to hire shooters that also know how to at least communicate and coordinate with clients well, because that is also a skill that is very hard to find. And there's like very few people that we know that we can just trust to just go out and do it like that, because like there could be a situation like where Dario and I are tied up on a project and a client needs something shot tomorrow. It's like, okay, we call a handful of people who we know who can do it, and then that's it. But in terms of just pure producing, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't say Dario, like, we don't really have anyone specifically on that, unless we're hiring another production company on our end to help us, kind of like how you hired us to go in to help you because you were remote. Because there are situations like that where it's like, okay, maybe you can fly because you're technically available, but it's like, what happens to all the other projects that you're working on back home? It's very difficult like that, right? And like last year, we did a project where we had a client needing something shot in North Carolina and in Seattle, and it just made sense for one of us to fly out to just kind of produce. We hired local, and I was able to take care of that while Dario was able to handle some of the other projects that we had on the go in Toronto. And it's not always, you don't always have that luxury of being able to travel. You have to sometimes put your trust in the people that are local, like we do with Jake, one of our previous guests, who is out in the UK. We've hired him for a few projects for one of our own clients, and you have to find those relationships and build them. You have to take a chance at the same time sometimes, but yeah, it's tough.
Well, I've got a pretty strong network of people across Canada and now some into the US, and because same thing, I need someone to shoot in BC or Calgary or San Francisco, or like I have a project upcoming that we need to find a couple production companies in Florida and Philadelphia and things like that. And I've even hired people in the UK, in Ireland and stuff like that, and even started to look in people in Mongolia and stuff like that. Like, it's all over the world.
In Mongolia, wow.
Yeah. It's just it's like, is there even anyone that I know in Mongolia? But luckily, the client has somebody already on the ground there. But yeah, it's being hand-based here and just having as much traction or length of time working with people over the years. I can just usually reach out to people, like, I think it was Adam Lawson that recommended you to me, and just only because I worked with him once or twice, and I'm like, hey, do you know anyone in the area who can be like me? Because he shoots like myself, very similar to myself, and I trusted his judgment. And that was the biggest thing. Even though You can Google search and find any kind of review you want, and look at people on social media. Really, the best way is a recommendation from somebody who knows somebody. You can say, "Oh, yeah, this person's not a clown," or stuff like that. So it's the best way to do it for sure.
Yeah, like that's the best way to get a good sense of like who it is that you're hiring, because like you said, reviews, they only tell you so much, and a lot of the time they're reviews from the client's perspective, right? They're not reviews from people that have worked with them on the back end in a way, right? So, I wonder if there's like some kind of like video production database, where like people review companies that they've worked with. I don't know, but yeah, like you have to get a personal recommendation, because then it's like, okay, they've actually worked with them and it went well. There was no problem from the client side or anything like that. Great. Then now I can also trust them because I trust them. It's like a trust by association kind of thing. And that's how this whole industry works. People tend to hire people when they have some kind of recommendation. That's why you're always seeing posts on even socials where it's like, hey, looking for a first AC, on their like Instagram stories or something like that, because they're looking for people that they know to recommend someone, right? Because that's
Exactly.
the best way to find people, rather than just going on Facebook and just Googling for like crew positions that are at random, because you never know what you're going to get at that point otherwise.
For sure. And we had a large project, or we had two just recently, like maybe a month and a half ago. We were going to do a 4-day shoot with Ford and Lincoln with a photographer friend of mine, and I had brought on another B camera person to be on my team, and so I said yes to the job on like the Wednesday before the Monday, and then the next day another client of mine said, "Hey, remember that project we were talking about like 3 weeks or a month ago? They want to do it Monday." And I'm like, oh, crap. It's like, how am I going to pull it off? Because the relationship was super important to the client. Like, my relationship to my contact was important and good, but their relationship to the end client was like extremely important. So, and I was like, okay, well, I can send my trusted person down to do that. And they're like, okay, as long as you trust, 100% that they can do what be you, because that is really important to us. I'm like, sounds like I have to be there as well. But other one was already happening. So what I ended up doing was that the Ford project wasn't happening. It was kind of like following this media tour. So they were meeting about an hour and a half away from where we were shooting originally. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do the shoot in the morning, and then I'm gonna send my other person, B camera person, to go start the other project or the other shoot, and then when I finish my shoot, I'm gonna get my other person to drive me to them and meet them. So it was a lot of balls in the air for that one, but we definitely made it happen. It was pretty. Again, the things were going back to the idea of like when things are not in your control in terms of schedule, like that's when things can get pretty stressful. So yeah, you just have to work hard at it and talk to your clients, because sometimes people are like, okay, we want to do a shoot on Wednesday. So it's okay, well, does it have to be Wednesday? Can it be Thursday or Tuesday? Does it really matter? Because sometimes you're just like, okay, I'll do it no matter what, I'll make it happen. But it's like, well, maybe it's better if you do it on the Friday instead or something like that.
Scheduling is always a challenging thing, and we actually just recently went with one of those kind of situations with our client for a shoot we did yesterday. Originally, that shoot was supposed to be today. And what happened was it was basically going to be today, and then the day before was like a setup day where I went in and just kind of set up everything for an interview. It was an interview type setup, right, with teleprompter. Nothing too crazy, but it's still important stuff for the client. And then on the Thursday, the client reaches out to Dario and says like, hey, so we just found out that the talent he actually has his flight scheduled on Wednesday because he thought we were shooting on Tuesday, when in reality it was Wednesday. And so they were talking to us about like, yeah, we just ended up moving everything. She said, is it possible to move the shoot to Tuesday? And luckily we did technically have the Tuesday booked off for the setup. So for the shoot itself was not a problem, but it was like, if we had something else booked on the Monday, then that could have been potentially a challenge, because then like someone would have had to go to set up on the Monday for the Tuesday shoot, because the Tuesday shoot was scheduled to start very early morning. So we didn't want to spend any time prepping the shot, making sure everything looks fine. Like we wanted to have like a whole separate half day that was just devoted to that. And then luckily it all worked out for us. But like same thing on your end. Like imagine if we had another shoot on that day. It's like, okay, how would we have potentially?
We would have been able to make it work because luckily there's two of us. So if both of us were on different projects and then that happened, though, that would have been tricky. At that point, it would have had to have been a situation where it's like, if they absolutely had to do it, maybe we could have asked like another production company, like if they could have helped us with it, like a producer that we know from another company.
There's so many ways you can go about it. Like at the end of the day, if if Dara and I were both scheduled for a shoot on the Monday, it could have potentially been something as simple as like one of us would go for the client with this one, and then hire another DP to kind of go with the other one on the other shoot. So every situation is different, you know, and you have to find the best solution like with the resources you have. And Craig, yours sounded kind of crazy, but you made it work, you know. You know, sometimes you have to do it like that. Like I've known some producers where they basically had like two crews and for two different shoots, and then they started like half day with one and then go half day to the other, which is kind of what you did. You did more of like a Jenga type situation where you were kind of like trying to figure out like the precise timing of it, but you made it work. And at the end of the day, as long as the clients are happy, then you've done your job.
Exactly. And I mean, some things happened on the first shoot that really I needed to be there for, honestly. That the client was, my first contact to the client was, that's what they're paying me for, like because they trust me to manage things and stuff like that. So yeah, always a balance for sure.
Sorry, I have a meeting in a couple minutes. I got to run to.
Yep.
Can I? Yeah, it seems like you guys don't want to chat. If you guys don't want to chat, can I just leave and then? Carol...
Yeah, actually, my timing's kind of getting tight here now.
Oh, okay,
well,
okay, good.
If
Okay, so
okay.
let's end the episode then.
Yeah, we're already at an hour anyways.
Yeah,
but that was good.
Yeah, but anytime you ever want to talk again, like, yeah, let me know. I love talking about stuff like that because, like I said, there's not a lot of people you always get to talk industry stuff with, so it's great.
So, guys, if you want to find Craig, go to spidervideo.tv, and you guys are based out of oh my god, I forgot the name.
Dartmouth, Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
Exactly.
One of the two.
What are your socials? Is it just
Spider Video across the board? Yeah.
Yeah. So at Spider Video, follow him on social media, and yeah, man, thanks for coming on board.
Well, thanks. It was great to talk to you, and again, really appreciate the work that you did for us there a couple weeks ago, and the stuff looked great, and you basically did exactly what I would do had I been there on the day, and that's what I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Happy to hear. Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all gonna have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.